Opt-outs, transfers, COVID issues. Let's face it, folks, bowl season's a mess, but it is bowl season. And if you love college football, you take what you can get. And for the past 2 college football seasons, that's exactly the attitude we've all had to take. And what Ohio State's going to take this year is hopefully a Rose Bowl game that's going to be played in Pasadena on New Year's Day against the Utah Utes. And we have seen 6 football games impacted in this bowl season, and all sorts of scrambling to match up opponents against would-be opponents. But again, this is the granddaddy of them all. So we hope this one comes off. Steve, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mark. I am coming to you from Residence Inn, LA Live. I'm looking out here at the 105 freeway or the 110. I don't know. I don't know which is which. I'm not out here enough to know my way around real well. I'm just good enough to be dangerous. And as I look out my window here, which I turn the computer around, but I don't think you get a real good view of it, I can see the Hollywood sign way off in the distance, but it is kind of foggy and smoggy here today. It's not a clear day. In fact, Ohio State was going to practice, and according to Pat Murphy, who's with me here from Bucknuts, they might be moving where they're practicing today from down at Carson, California, the soccer stadium area, to maybe an indoor area today because of the rain. So no rain expected for the game, though, on Saturday. Temperature 60 degrees, sunshine, and like a 2% chance of rain here on Saturday. So the Buckeyes can't blame the surroundings or the weather for any misfortune this time around.
Folks, this is the last time we're going to have a game week for quite some time until it's Notre Dame and the first weekend of September. So jump on into the live chat with your comments and questions about Ohio State's matchup against Utah and anything else concerning Ohio State football. We got Steve here from what is not necessarily today sunny Los Angeles, but expects to be here later in the week. All right, Steve. Well, I guess first and foremost are these 4 opt-outs. The 2 wide receivers, Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. You got Nicholas Petit-Frere along the offensive line. We've got Haskell Garrett opting out at the D tackle position. So I guess if we start at wide receiver, we're talking about the most talented wide receiver unit in America. We're talking about the deepest position on the team, either side of the ball, but still, when you're talking about 2 elite talents, they're going to be missed.
Yeah, no question about it. You talk about guys with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, who just made touchdowns rain for Ohio State this year. I think one of them had 13, one of them had 12, I believe, this year. They're not going to play in this game, although Chris Olave, it's kind of weird, has been practicing, and you just wonder if on game day he just says the heck with it and puts his uniform on and trots out there one last time with his teammates and maybe, checks himself in for a few plays. You never know. That would be really a great benefit if that happens. I'm not predicting it to happen. As of right now, it's not going to happen. But he has still been practicing with the team, which is kind of weird that a guy who, is protecting himself for the NFL draft is still going to practice. He's not going through any hitting drills or anything stupid like that. So maybe because of that, maybe he won't play, period. But at any rate, Ohio State has built some tremendous depth at wide receivers. We know they've got Jackson Smith-Njigba, who had just a huge year for the Buckeyes this year. All 3 of them were considered at an All-American level on different teams. And it was just kind of hard. I think there should have been a Biletnikoff Award winner out of the 3 of them had Ohio State thrown its weight behind one of them and said, this is our guy, the best of the best, vote for him. Instead, they split that vote and ended up going to some undeserving wide receiver somewhere else. The Pittsburgh guy, maybe, I don't know. So, any rate, I think Smith-Njigba is going to find out what it's like to be chucked and marked like never before, because you don't have to guard against Olave and Wilson taking the top off the defense. And now they're going to really stilt their defense toward him and really going to make his life miserable, I think, in this game. So it's going to be up to Emeka Buka, Marvin Harrison, Julian Fleming, those three guys to step up. Jeremy Ruckert at tight end will need to play an outstanding game. If he can get him 4, 5, 6 catches, that would be huge as well. And CJ Stroud is going to have to be very judicious in how he spreads the ball around. Travion Henderson was a great release valve coming out of the backfield. So I think it's going to take a village to replicate the kind of production that Ohio State had. I think Stroud was somewhere around 3rd, 4th, or 5th nationally in passing yards per game at 351 yards per game. This year, he had 393, I think, in the loss to Michigan. And so when you look at it in those terms, it's going to take a village to replicate that kind of production that you get from Olave and Wilson not being there. I wish you did have a game or two where maybe Wilson was out, like I think at Nebraska he didn't play, and Smith-Njigba had like 14 or 15 catches, whatever it was that day, set a new Ohio State record. But not having Olave there, that's another matter unto itself. So uncharted territory for this offense, but at the same time, a preview of what Ohio State fans have coming down the pike. And I asked Smith-Njigba today at the offensive interviews if he thinks this group of receivers can basically have that same kind of impact that the three that he was part of this year could. And he had no doubt. He said, no doubt in my mind, we're going to be just as good next year with the guys we have. And of course, helps having a pretty good quarterback throwing you the football too.
And you see this often during bowl season with rosters that are loaded to this degree. So there's not many of these teams in the country, but when you've got guys waiting in the wings that are just by measurements of talent just as good, they're not as experienced, they haven't produced, they haven't proven it, but they're just as talented, that with a full several weeks of bowl prep and work with the starting quarterback, and more so than they get during the regular season, and their time to shine and cut loose, that you determine that, hey, these guys are nearly as good and they're ready to take the reins and run with it.
Yeah, no doubt. I think, we've seen over the years different times where guys have emerged in bowl practices and in bowl games when they were shoved in there. Von Bell didn't play much in 2013, but came on, had an interception in the Orange Bowl in 2013, and then he became an All-American or All-Big Ten player the following year when Ohio State won the national championship. And then another guy is Wyatt Davis, who Kevin Wilson brought up. It was here at the Rose Bowl 3 years ago where there was an injury or something happened, and he got shoved in there, and I think he had to start for somebody on the offensive line. And then he starts for 2 years for Ohio State the next 2 years and goes and jumps off to the NFL. So, this has happened before. And, it's unusual that you would lose 3 starters, all of them on one All-American team or another, off your roster. And certainly all 4 of the guys, including Haskell Garrett over on defense, were all Big Ten players, first team, I believe. Well, that's not entirely true because not all the receivers were first team receivers. But at any rate, you get what I'm driving at, that you lose this amount of talent. People on our message boards have questioned the culture, the brotherhood. Don't call it a brotherhood if you don't really mean it, these kind of things. And I just think that's totally disingenuous for people to make value judgments about the guys, because this is their life, and we're talking about 10 or 20 times more money in a 3 or 4 year period than any of us will probably see in a lifetime. And I think that it's important for these guys to secure their future. And I don't have a problem with it. Everybody brings up the Jalen Smith example from Notre Dame. I was at that game. I was in the tunnel when they brought him through. It was really weird. Ohio State was playing Notre Dame in that Fiesta Bowl, I think after the 2015 season. And in rapid fire succession, Jalen Smith blew out his knee, and Joey Bosa got ejected for targeting against, I think Kaiser was the Notre Dame quarterback. And I'm standing down there in one of the tunnels for whatever reason, and here comes Jalen Smith, and not far before or after that, here comes Joey Bosa, going right by me. So it was, the star power in that game got evaporated because of stuff that happened on the field. So, it is what it is. And I'm, again, you don't see guys opting out of the playoff games, which some people will use as another reason why we need more playoff games, I guess, or more playoff teams. It was brought up that Michigan, I think, under Jim Harbaugh, played, I want to say, in a Sugar or an Orange Bowl just a few years ago, and they had 4 guys opt out of that. So it's basically the same situation, just the name of the game is different. It's the Rose Bowl, which has all these connotations from, when we were all in the 60s and 70s, that it was the end-all, be-all. Well, it's really not anymore. So it's unfortunate. It's a big deal every third year when it's a playoff game. But and last year was a playoff game, and I don't believe it was even held here. It was held in Arlington, Texas. So, some of the bloom is off the rose, so to speak.
So to speak.
So to speak.
If I remember correctly, for Michigan, the Orange Bowl against Florida State, Jabril Peppers didn't play in that game. Jake Butt decided to play, and he got hurt, severely hurt early in that game. Somebody else didn't play. The next year, they played in the Peach Bowl, and Karan Higdon decided not to play, and I think Rashawn Gary didn't play. Somebody else, maybe a Jordan Lewis or another one of their top corners, did not play in that game as well.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate. I wrestle with this myself, Steve. I got to say, I haven't taken a direct stance on this because, on one hand, this is America, and yes, these individuals have a right to choose as they wish, just like you and I do. All of us do. Where we're going to be employed, where we're not going to be employed, what we're going to do. And as long as you have the leverage, which they do in this case, because they are sought after by the NFL, they have the leverage to do what they will, and they're making the choice not to risk their future career, which is probably only going to be, to Steve's point, 3 to 5 years. Unless they become some superstar, they're going to have a 3 to 5 year career to make serious money. They don't want to risk that. And so I can respect that. Of course, it's their choice. On the other hand, it is disappointing for college football fans, but again, it's their life. It's only entertainment for the rest of us. And I do, though, one portion of this that has weighted me on the side of having them play is just their original commitment to the scholarship and to play for the team, and it being determined that the season is the season. The season is not completed until whatever postseason was designated for that particular team is played, and then that's the completion of the season and just fulfilling that obligation of sorts.
Yeah, I mean, what difference does it really make in the ultimate scheme of things if you're 11-2 or 10-3? It honestly, we've come to a point in college football, the time and space continuum of college football, that only thing that matters is winning the national championship, I guess, at this point. And if they expand the playoff and don't include automatic conference championship game winners, it's almost kind of like, what point is it even to win the conference championship at that point? Is it an antiquated notion? Is it something that gets in the way of the ultimate prize, the national championship? I don't know. I don't see it that way. I think there's still great value in all of it, but it's unfortunate, that the one constant in life, fortunate is change. And it's too bad. You can't put the guys in bubble wrap. I mean, that's the problem. And, you know, particularly Olave and Wilson. As I looked it up, they're both ranked somewhere like 10, 20 range in the first round, depending on what, if you look at CBS, ESPN, or there's one more draft I was looking at. I'm not sure who it was off the top of my head, but there were three of them that I considered. And then Petit Ferrer, I think, was somewhere around 50 overall, which would be middle to late second round. Another guy, Zach Harrison, who's actually going to play in this game, a defensive end, is number 53 overall. And he is pondering, at least on the CBS list, and he is pondering whether he will come back to Ohio State for his senior year. He was a team captain this year. His production really wasn't commensurate with what you thought maybe his ability level was, or his, looks like Tarzan. You can fill out the rest of that sentence if you like. Just didn't play up to that type hype, I suppose. But he would have great value if he comes back to Ohio State, just because, again, I think there's a guy on raw material that there are not many people like him walking the face of the planet. So if they can find a way to harness that and hone that and get production out of that and take 3 or 4 sacks and turn it into 8 or 10, then you've got something. So that'll be interesting after this game, is to see, where guys stand. There aren't a lot of them, I don't think, on this team that he may be about the only one really who's got a decision truly to make after this game that's meaningful. I mean, if somebody else goes, they would certainly be a late round pick. I don't even know who it would be. So at any rate, it's just kind of the unfortunate way of the world. And with COVID and the protocols and everything, they're just trying to keep everybody safe is the best way we could put it. What happened with NC State and UCLA was very regrettable, obviously. For a game to be canceled 4 hours before they take the field is kind of ridiculous. There's 3 games scheduled today, and you hope that they all get played. Unfortunately, the Fenway Bowl didn't get played. It was SMU and Virginia today were playing each other. When they canceled the one in Annapolis with East Carolina against Boston College, I figured it would have made perfect sense for East Carolina to just put their stuff on the train and go up to Boston and play SMU. But for whatever reason, those dots never got connected, whereas somehow, Central Michigan is going to play Washington State now in the Sun Bowl. And what a windfall that is. They went from making like $300,000 from that Barstool game to $2 million in the Sun Bowl. So good for them.
Yeah. So I don't know if the Sun Bowl people are that happy about trading Miami for Central Michigan, but hey, at least they've got a game.
You're at least still having a game.
They still have a game. So if anybody wants to watch college football while the Sun Bowl is on, the one prized gem of the CBS Bowl schedule that's left from the 1950s, the Sun Bowl. The only consideration I can think of, Steve, for East Carolina and SMU is that they play in the same conference.
Yeah.
And maybe they played this year.
Yeah, and whatever. I'm just thinking so that both teams can have a game. I think it would have been fitting if NC State had showed up at Petco Park and had an intra-squad scrimmage and let their fans come in and watch that and, get some young guys some reps in a unique situation, I guess. I don't know. That's about all that could have happened there. But, I don't know enough about all the protocols to make a valid discussion on it or have a value judgment on it, because for privacy reasons, there is no transparency on all this stuff. You never get names and numbers of people infected and to what degree, and is he sick? Is he really sick? Is he contagious? Has he had the virus? Has he had the booster? There's so many moving pieces and parts that I don't know. It's become a lot to try and keep track of between the COVID cancellations and the transfer portal and this and that and the other. It's enough to give you a little bit of a headache sometimes.
Well, Steve, I got to say, in the case of this Holiday Bowl cancellation, the Holiday Bowl officials are saying, at least publicly, that they're still looking for an opponent for NC State. Now, I don't know if they're just stating that to save face and make it look like they're doing their due diligence to try to make a game of it. But that's obviously a much different circumstance than what the Gator Bowl went through when Texas A&M pulled out 8 or 9 days in advance. They went and grabbed Rutgers, got those guys off the couch and out of their Christmas vacation to come and practice and get ready to play a New Year's Day game. But we're talking about 4 hours before the game. So what is NC State supposed to just kind of hang around for a week? And they're going to try to figure out who's going to play. San Diego State just got done playing. They're right in town. They just got done playing a bowl game. They're all in shape. Do you round them up and say, hey, do you want to play another bowl game?
Yeah, that would be a ready-made solution, I think. I don't know what's going to become of that. That's unfortunate. It was great news for Rutgers. I mean, they got, whether their players actually want to go and play in that game or not, after sitting on the couch. I don't know. I'm sure some of them do and some of them don't. And Again, like this Ohio State situation, if you don't want to play or whatever, no one's putting a gun to your head. You don't have to play. So, as long as you can field a team, my guess is they pulled the players. And, out of 90 players, probably 70 or 80 of them said, hell yeah, put me on national TV. Let's go play football. That's what, for some of them, it'd be their absolute last game of football if they were seniors. So why not? And a chance to go play a pretty good team too. So, I applaud them for taking full advantage of the situation. And I hope that game comes off. We don't know what's going to happen with parameters or protocols or whatever at all these places. I'm just sitting here in Los Angeles. I mean, we talked about this 2 weeks ago. I flew to Las Vegas 2 weeks ago to go watch Ohio State play Kentucky to cover that game. And I was an hour and a half into the flight on the Thursday before the game. And my son said, oh, there's been some news. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? He goes, oh, they've canceled the game. And I'm like, oh, my God. If this had happened 90 minutes ago, we would have canceled our flight, in our trip to Vegas. So, oh, well, we made the most of it. We were stuck in Vegas for 3 nights, and we muddled through somehow, some way.
There are worse places to be stuck for 3 nights.
Yeah, I didn't get beat up too bad. And I've got a couple parlays that are still live. As I was saying, I hit on the first part of one of my parlays, I hit Minnesota last night, and I think I need Clemson and Oklahoma today. So we'll see how that goes. I just look at Oregon as like, really, you're Oregon in name, but not in anything beyond that. When you've been run out of the building twice by Utah, what purpose is there to go really play another game? So I think Oklahoma, if they're on, could have a big game. But of course, coaching change there. The coaching change at both places. So Jesus criminy. And the coaching changes. Jesus criminy. These coaching changes. I got upset about that a few weeks ago. But yeah, crazy sport we're following here. Crazy sport.
Yeah, we'll get back to the Buckeyes, but I'm right on the same line with you with Oklahoma. For as dysfunctional as that situation is, at least they've got a veteran in Bob Stoops, rallying the troops, and it's minor dysfunction compared to what's going on at Oregon. So I just see a recipe for a blowout there. But then again, trying to predict these bowl games these days, coming from a guy that takes some pride in predicting these games right, is become like throwing darts. Sue, we appreciate you being here as always. You know that. So Sue was asking about the likes of Seven Banks and Cody Simon, Marcus Williamson, Antoine Jackson, not making the trip, and why.
Well, again, we don't get much explanation on any of this stuff. Seven Banks, obviously, I think he was out at the end of the season and wasn't playing. So maybe it's some type of lingering injury to where, it served no purpose for him to come here. And I haven't heard him make an announcement one way or the other, whether he's coming back. I mean, Cameron Brown announced he's coming back, and obviously Denzel Burke will be back as a sophomore next year. So it looks like they have 2 starters at corner. Although Banks, if he's healthy, could be pretty good again too. It's just he has fought it all season long. So I'm not sure that they were counting on Banks being involved in this game if Brown's healthy. So or involved all that much because, Utah's not that big of a pass threat. I mean, they will throw the football, but maybe not, like some of the teams Ohio State's played. Williamson, I've heard absolutely nothing about Marcus Williamson. He was kind of a backup nickel safety kind of guy for them this year. And maybe he just decided it wasn't worth his time to mess around. Or maybe he's injured. Antoine Jackson, I figured, would start in this game. He's been starting for Ohio State down the stretch. Perhaps he's injured. Maybe, some guys, they may not go out on the practice field because they are in a treatment room trying to get treatment sometimes during those hours so that they can make it to the field on Saturday. So sometimes that happens, although it's hard to play in a game on Saturday unless you practice. So Patrick Murphy from our staff was going out to practice today to check it out and to see, and I'm sure there'll be some reports. One of the things that's kind of hard to track when these guys go to practice is the players, as a lark, sometimes will trade jerseys during the bowl practices just to screw around and wear somebody else's jersey. So you can't always be certain if 52 is actually the real number 52 Antoine Jackson. So again, maybe this is something that Coach Day will bring up. He'll have one more press conference on Friday morning around 8:30 Pacific, 11:30 Eastern, and maybe at that time we'll get some type of a clarification on what's going on with that. So yeah, I honestly don't have a definitive answer other than Banks was kind of broken down at the end of the season. And it just seemed like, he just wasn't going to be available, and whether that's carried over to this game. And he just said, I'm not going to go down there to California. I'm going to go. Somebody said he was in Florida, where maybe he's starting to train to get ready for draft combines or whatever, which, good luck to him. It was a star-crossed year for him this year. And a lot of people thought he could have been a first or second round draft pick, maybe late first or early second had he left last year, and he didn't. So I don't know. But that's kind of what I make of those three.
We appreciate everybody being here, and I hope you folks understand that Steve's out there doing his job, and he takes time out to talk Ohio State football with us. We miss Kevin. We miss Tony. They're out at the Rose Bowl as well, out at practice, covering the Buckeyes. But we got Steve here each and every Wednesday at 1:30 Eastern time. So consider this, folks. I saw a sports media site that tracked time, and they tracked Sports Center and other ESPN studio shows as presenting over 35% of its content was, guess what? Promotions. We're not even talking about the commercials when they're on commercial break. We're just talking about when they're on the set delivering content, that 35% of that is promotion. So we do about 99% content and about 1% promotion. So a few of you can just settle in for just a second and listen up. So we would love to have a sponsor for this show, folks. We would love to have a sponsor for this channel, but specifically for this show, we've been grinding away for 138 weeks. Steve, Kevin, Tony, they've got all this going on with Ohio State men's and women's basketball. Football, of course, goes full throttle all the time, and they're here every week delivering Ohio State football content. So we would love to have a sponsor, number one. Number two, we always have the Super Chat available. So keep that in mind. Keep that into consideration. The Super Chat's available, but also to sponsor. And, of course, contact me at MarkRogersTV at Gmail, and I will unveil all the numbers we have in terms of how many people we reach here on the Ohio State channel and this show in particular, which usually runs somewhere between 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 views per week, plus all the other platforms it goes on as well. All right, Steve. In terms of the Nicholas Petit-Frere absence, do we know how that's going to shake up the offensive line?
Yes. Excuse me. I just my vision just got taken from me there for a second. Yes, and it's a ready-made solution, honestly. Thayer Munford, who was a previous starter at tackle, will move from left guard over one spot to left tackle. And Matthew Jones, who has been a starter at guard various times for Ohio State, will fill in. So I've got the start the start chart right here, Munford will be making his 45th and final career start. He is finally done. This was his super senior year. He is done and done. And so that'll be it for him. Matthew Jones has started 5 games in his career and 2 of them this year. So this will be his 6th career start, theoretically, at left guard. There was also talk that Paris Johnson, who could move out to tackle next year, who's playing guard right now, the right guard position, could have also possibly jumped out there and started. And maybe they'll even rep him a little bit at tackle in this game. I don't know. But it seems like Paris Johnson will move to tackle next year. So you have 2 kind of transitions here, one for this single game, which seemingly is as simple as Thayer Munford moving over, and Matthew Jones, who's done an outstanding job. He was an honorable mention All Big Ten player and only started 2 games this year. I think that'll give you an idea of what people thought of him as the 6th offensive lineman at Ohio State. He just did a fabulous job when he was in there. And there was a lot of debate, including I posted a story with Kevin Wilson here about how kind of in a way, I don't know if that's on my end or what. I've got so many windows open that
I think that's you, Steve.
Yeah.
Somebody's having a good time.
Yeah. I'll just X out of everything. If I can find it.
My name's Caleb. What's yours? I'm Grace. Did you just move here? Yeah. Cool.
I found it. Okay, there it goes. I found it. It was an advertisement that was playing. So it's a ready-made solution. Munford to tackle, Matthew Jones to guard. As we said, I think what will happen next year is Paris Johnson will move from guard either to left tackle or to right tackle. DeJuan Jones, the big guy, 360 pounds, could play right tackle or left tackle. To me, the guards would be Matthew Jones and Harry Miller, the guy who sat out this year, most of the year, because of injury. And then I would envision Luke Whippler would be back at center. He did kind of a bang-up job there. I don't know if he was an all-Big Ten player, but, if they feel that's their best 5 that gives them the chance to win. Maybe it's Harry Miller at center and somebody else at guard. I know Josh Fryer is a name that they talk quite a bit about, and Donovan Jackson was a blue-chip guy, a freshman this year, who they used as kind of a blocking H-back type guy. They put a eligible receiver number on him in some sets, I think 41. Sometimes they slapped on him and said, "You're now the H-back, go." So they like his mobility, obviously, as a guard, and maybe he wins the job at guard. So they've got options. Offensive line through the end of next season, to me, is going to remain, Michigan game notwithstanding, a strength on this team. So I think that they're going to be okay there for this game and also for the future, at least through the end of next season.
So then, Steve, moving to the Haskell Garrett spot, how do you think that impacts the defensive line and who gets a few more reps there?
Yeah, I would have thought Antoine Jackson, but again, maybe his situation is a little bit up in the air, whether he's even with the team. I can't imagine a scenario where he didn't come with this team for this game. I don't know why that would even be, because I've heard nothing about that. But and now I'm just looking out the window, and here it is. It is 11 a.m., and there is bumper-to-bumper traffic on the freeway out here in Los Angeles, and I'm just sitting here just smiling, laughing at it. But at any rate, I think Tyleik Williams, the true freshman, a guy who really flashed at midseason and then kind of went back into the witness protection program after that for reasons that never were really clarified why he didn't get to play much down the stretch. Jerron Cage is another guy who had some good moments. Teron Vincent is a guy who has played a lot of football on this start thing. Let's see. Teron Vincent. He started 5 games this year. Jackson started 9. Garrett started 8. Cage started 1. Ty Hamilton is another one who could be in that mix. He started 1 game. So, they've got some guys there. they need some people to play and actually play better than what we saw against Michigan. Was not a good outing, certainly for the defensive line. Kind of got blown apart in that game. So I think we want to see, who lines up at defensive tackle and if they'll have an impact in this game. Because Haskell Garrett, and he really wasn't right the last couple. He only started one of the last 4 games in the regular season. He wasn't right down the stretch. His number of plays had dwindled quite a bit by the end of the season. So something wasn't quite right with him. Again, what it was, who knows. But, I'm interested to see how it all shakes out.
Got a derogatory comment from David Greenshield in the live chat about the offensive line recruiting. And I'm looking at the 2022 class. You do have to go down about 10 or 11 players before you find an offensive lineman, at least in the 22 class, with, is it Tegra Shabola out of Westchester, offensive tackle, top 10 at his position.
Yeah, you're making a good point, and the questioner, whoever it was, has kind of hit a nail on the head here. Ohio State through the years has been a great offensive line program, and they got Paris Johnson 2 years ago, who was a sophomore this year. He was a national top 20 player, and Donovan Jackson, freshman this year, who was a national top 30, 40 player, maybe even better than that. And beyond those two, it's more program type guys. And I think people are complaining about the body types too, that they're mostly well over 300-pound guys and nobody who would project maybe as much to play the guard positions. I do think they have a few of those guys. As I said, I think Josh Fryer is probably the best offensive lineman Ohio State has that nobody's ever heard of because he really didn't get to play much. But I think he would be in the running. Donovan Jackson would be in the running to play next year. The questioner makes a tremendous, tremendous point because the offensive line is what really Urban Meyer once said, it's an offensive line driven program. So, you got to have the best, and they have some of those blue chip high end players, but maybe not the volume of them that they're accustomed to seeing. And now it's going to come down to development. Is Josh Pryor going to be developed and play at an all Big Ten level? Can Harry Miller get back to playing at an all Big Ten level? A lot of questions there. Would I say offensive line recruiting has been terrible? I wouldn't say it's been terrible. Has it been great? I wouldn't say it's been great. It's kind of been mediocre, kind of in the middle with one or two really good player, one good player every year, and then just kind of filling around the cracks. So I want to see him do better with it. And, I don't have an argument with that comment. I don't think it's an unfair comment at all, really.
Yeah, if you just look at the recruiting rankings in the last 2 or 3 classes, to your point and David's point, the high-end guys have been exceptional. They have been high-end signees, but along the offensive line, you need volume too, and it just doesn't seem to be there.
Yeah, quality volume. Paris Johnson, to me, I thought had a very good year, and so I would consider him as a guy that's panned out. And I do believe Donovan Jackson, it's going to be tough for him to crack that lineup next year. That's a tough one because he's a really good player. But this year showed that you need 6 or 7 linemen to get through a season. So, I think it'll work out. And I don't know if Miller's the answer to go back to playing at center or if Whippler will maintain that position. But I would like to see them. They are in on some good offensive linemen still that they are hoping that will help them fill out this class. There's one name in particular. I'd have to look it up here on my machine, but
they need to do better. And part of the problem is Ohio has produced some, and maybe they haven't gotten them. Is a problem as well. Guys that are playing at Notre Dame and playing some other places that maybe should be playing at Ohio State, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. I'm looking for this offensive lineman. I can't find his name. Ooh, this isn't good. I don't know. Don't see one. Oh well. They were tracking an offensive lineman. I'm coming up short here trying to find out who it was, but
Steve, I guess we could debate the importance of this game because we've talked about that ever since the game was announced. It's the Rose Bowl. It's New Year's Day. It's Ohio State. It's Utah.
I found it.
Go to it.
It's Carson Hinsman from Wisconsin. He's between Ohio State and Wisconsin, and Ohio State has given him so. You would think this is a no-brainer to go to Wisconsin because he's from Hammond, Wisconsin, but Ohio State's given him so much to think about. He's going to wait and sign in the late period now because he just could not make a decision for the early period. So he would be an offensive guard, one of those road grader type guys, 6'4", 280, an interior offensive lineman, the number 6 overall interior offensive lineman. 24/7 has gotten to the point where they rate all the tackles as one group, guys who they feel are going to be tackles, and then they take the centers and guards who are almost interchangeable in a lot of sense, and lump them together as one group as interior offensive linemen. He's the number 6 interior offensive lineman. So I think he's a guy that could really help your depth at guard if you were to land him in the late period, which it's Ohio State or Wisconsin. And you were touching about the Rose Bowl. I can pick up the ball and run with it. Psychologically, you want to win the Rose Bowl, okay? There's a lot of things, a lot of reasons why. Because first of all, it's a game that is highlighted. ESPN puts it in a prime position at 5 p.m. on New Year's Day. They'll draw a pretty good rating, even though it's Ohio State against Utah. I don't think it'll be a great rating. I think, Utah and the Pac-12, will anybody in the Pac-12 care that their longtime conference affiliate Utah, it's been in the conference 11 years, is playing in the Rose Bowl? I don't think
it doesn't have that Rose Bowl feel to it.
Nobody in Los
Ohio
Angeles,
State and USC.
Yeah, it gives 2 craps about Utah. So, so at any rate, but psychologically, I think it is a jump-off point for this program for next year. I think it's something that propels C.J. Stroud to another level as the quarterback if he's able to put a Rose Bowl win on his resume. Just a lot of players, as we said, this was a jumping-off point for Ryan Day's first team in 2019, which turned out to be a pretty good year for the Buckeyes. Of course, adding Justin Fields helped, and having J.K. Dobbins helped, but they had arguably the best season in Big Ten play anybody's ever had, 10 wins by double digits, I believe. I think no one's ever done that, 10 Big Ten wins, all by double digits in the same season over conference opponents. So to my way of thinking, that was a huge win for Ohio State in the Rose Bowl, even though it was kind of the swan song for a lot of guys, including Dwayne Haskins, was done after that game. But there were a lot of guys who took it from there in 2019, and it was a magical season up through the loss to Clemson in the semifinals. So it really gives you more momentum for recruiting. It gives you more momentum going into winter workouts. Guys show up a half hour early. They smile, they're happy. Everyone can, see that tackle I made in the Rose Bowl or whatever. Everyone has a happier thought about it when you go into the offseason after a win. It won't be an easy game, obviously. This is arguably the biggest game in school history when you think about it. First time in a Rose Bowl. They've been in New Year's 6 caliber games before. Urban Meyer led Utah to an undefeated season in 2004, and they beat Pittsburgh 35-7 in the Fiesta Bowl that year. And then Whittingham, who came in after Meyer, they went down to the Sugar Bowl in 2009 and beat Alabama pretty handily, like 31-17 in one of those. Well, they didn't care about it. SEC, it wasn't a championship, they didn't care to be there type thing.
They haven't cared about 4 games this bowl season.
Yeah, they're 0 for 4 on the carrying right now, aren't they? So Ohio State better care, because if they don't, Utah is a hard-hitting team, and they're going to out-hit Ohio State and out-physical Ohio State, beat Ohio State if they're not up to play their best game.
And Steve, not just about the program, but about Ryan Day in particular. Urban Meyer can be credited for so many things at Ohio State. At the top of the list is 7-0 against Michigan, but it was the same mentality of playoffs or bust. And when Ohio State did not reach the playoffs, Urban Meyer, to his credit, he was able to rally the troops, get them refocused. As he always said, we celebrate for 24 hours, we get our next mission. And that wasn't just coach speak in his Urban Meyer-esque talk. He did it. They went out against Notre Dame and beat them in the Fiesta Bowl. They went out against USC and beat them in the Cotton Bowl. They went out against Washington in the Rose Bowl after disappointments and being left out of the playoffs. And so we'll see if Ryan Day has that same ability to refocus the team and get them ready for a meaningful game, depending on your perspective, after a disappointment.
Yeah, and the other thing to think about, I'm watching this. Maryland is returning an interception, it appears, for a touchdown.
Okay, that's good news for me.
Big Ten is out early here.
Yeah.
Virginia Tech. So that's like a 92-yard touchdown return. May have been a punt. Tarheeb Still for Maryland. That's like they're going to get the ball to start the second half too, so they may get touchdowns at the beginning of both halves. But it was a punt, it appears. You think about these opportunities to play in this type of game don't come along very often, and Ohio State has not lost consecutive games in 8 years. It was the end of the 2013 season. They lost to Michigan State in the Big Ten championship game, and then they got beat by Clemson in the Orange Bowl. I think it was 40-35, I think was the final score in that game. One of the very few games in Ohio State history, like 1 or 2, that Ohio State scored 35 points and did not win the game. So some history was made that day at the Orange Bowl, but with good old Taj Boyd, I think, was at the controls then. Just a terrible Ohio State defensive team that year. And, of course, got upset, undefeated, get upset, had won 24 straight games, Urban Meyer's first 24 games, and then he loses 2 in a row. And you're like, what's up with the culture at Ohio State? Well, they came back off of that and went 14-1 the following year and won the national championship. So, I guess, culture is what culture is. But at any rate, as I said, there's a lot to be gained by playing well in this game. And I think you can't understate it. I mean, you want to recruit the West Coast well. They've had some West Coast recruits come out to practice and enjoy what they've seen from Ohio State. So I think it's only a positive being in this game. And, if guys decided that it wasn't for them and they didn't want to play and for their own reasons or whatever, I don't have the least bit of issue with that, because I can't make, business decisions for somebody else, or people have to make the decisions that they have to live with. So that's kind of where I stand on that.
Steve Hillwagon, Bucknuts, 247 Sports. Join him, the rest of the staff over there. The brand, 247 Sports. It's the top of the industry. So track Steve's work there on Bucknuts. Is there anything in particular that you're working on this week?
No, I'm going to release my prediction on the game probably later tonight. I am very conflicted on this. One of the guys from our site, I think, is picking Utah to win the game, and that's certainly not out of the realm of possibility. I think that it seems kind of crazy to say that, but when you take 4 really good players out of your lineup, are you going to be able to play your best game? And I think that is certainly up for debate with Ohio State. So the line dropped from like 6.5 to 4.5 with the news that all those guys weren't going to play. And I think that the odds makers are smart enough to see that there's still a lot here with Ohio State. And particularly if they get back to physical principles up front on defense and offense, that they can play some ball control. But I'm going to tell you, this guy from Utah, what they call the MAC linebacker, I presume, the middle linebacker, Devin Lloyd, 6'3", 235 pounds, junior,
Yep.
first team Associated Press All-American. He is straight out of Central Casting for what you would want in a middle linebacker. I mean, this is a guy that, Ohio State's had some great linebackers over the years, like your Spielmans, your Katzenmoyers. I don't know, in recent vintage, who would stack up to that. I mean, Laurinaitis to a degree, maybe. A.J. Hawk, to me, was a man's man at linebacker. This is Devin Lloyd's line, 106 tackles. In 13 games, he has 22 tackles for loss. 13 games. Now, stop and think that in the last game Ohio State played at Michigan, the entire team, everybody who took a snap in 60-some plays for Ohio State, there were zero tackles for loss. This guy himself had 22 in 13 games for Utah, plus 8 sacks included in that 22 tackles for loss, 4 interceptions, 6 pass breakups, 2 quarterback hits, and a fumble recovery. This guy has had one of the most outstanding years, at least statistically, of a linebacker of anybody I can recall in recent memory. And when you watch them play, he just jumps. Like I watched the championship game against Oregon, he just jumps off the tape at you. So I think if Ohio State doesn't account for that guy in whatever they're trying to do, running the football or whatever, it's going to be another very long day trying to run the ball for Ohio State if they don't account for Devin Lloyd, because he is special. And I don't think there's any two ways about that. He is an outstanding player. So, and they've got some other guys too on this. The defensive line, Mike Tafua had some big sack numbers. Junior Tafuna is a freshman, and so is Vian Fillinger, a freshman. They have 2 freshmen starting on the defensive line, and Tafuna and Fillinger are outstanding. I mean, they are. Fillinger looks like kind of a cross between a Bosa and a Sam Hubbard type player. I think people will enjoy watching him play. I mean, not that you're rooting, obviously, for Utah, but the way he plays with the motor he plays, it's a high motor team. I think that's what comes back when you watch them, is that I think what happened with them, Mark, they won their last 6 games, obviously. Everybody knows that. 2 of them over Oregon. They had Charlie Brewer was the quarterback at the beginning of the season. They started 1-2, had the losses, Air Force and BYU, I think, in the first 3 weeks. And then they demoted Brewer and put Cam Rising, who's very plucky at quarterback. He's a good thrower, not great, and a decent runner. As Matt Barnes, the defensive assistant, said yesterday, he runs it better than you'd like. He throws it better than you'd like, as a defensive coach going against him. So he does a little bit of everything, but, he's not necessarily a master. He's not what you would call a run pass specialist, great thrower or anything like that. He's just a good quarterback. And they were 9-1 with him as the starting quarterback. And they also obviously had the tragedy that we all know about. The 2 players from Mesquite, Texas, both killed. Both died, gun-related accidents. One shot and killed the other. I think it was a mishap with a firearm, whatever. And I think that a lot of those feelings early in the season kind of galvanized this team and brought them together. And they are playing for those 2 guys. It's a very poignant moment at the Pac-12 championship. They had the mother of one of those players went out for the coin toss with the captains, and then they just obliterated Oregon again 13 days after they'd done it the time before. And I just feel like this is a team that, again, it's kind of like, I say with Michigan, Michigan beat Ohio State. That was their Miami game. That was their Alabama game, in terms of Ohio State vernacular. Those were, breakthrough wins for Ohio State when they beat Miami for the championship, when they beat Alabama to get to the semifinals. Biggest win in 20 years, in some regards, both of them. That was Michigan. If Utah wins this game, it's their biggest win in program history, in my opinion. I don't know what else they've ever done that would account for this. I mean, I guess going undefeated, I presume they were undefeated the Meyer year, 13-0, whatever. I guess that was big, but they played Pittsburgh, who was barely ranked probably. That was like in a 4-way tie for the Big East, and
7-5.
Somehow won the won the tiebreaker to get to go to the Fiesta Bowl, and then probably, got stuck with a bill for 15,000 Fiesta Bowl tickets they didn't sell. So whatever. I did a story on our site talking about the ticket sales for this game. Ohio State had 20,000 tickets, sold 13,000, returned them. The 7,000 they didn't sell. Oregon was originally given like 26,000, which is par for the course. People say, why do they get more tickets? Well, proximity, the people out here on the Pac-12 typically will go to this game just because it's a little closer. So the Pac-12 team usually gets 26,000. And so they got their 26,000. They blew through that, and they took, I wouldn't say it was Ohio State's 7,000 because they're probably not going to be in that part of the stadium, but, another 7,000 or 8,000. They've sold over 33,000 tickets. Utah did. There'll be a sellout around 91,000, I think, for the game, as is customary. And it's a COVID time, but there was no game here last year, but they're walking into a hornet's nest. I had one guy from Vivid Seats say he thinks it'll be 70-30 Utah, although there are a lot of people who have season tickets to this game who go every year, who live in Southern California, and it's just part of their annual ritual that doesn't matter who's playing, they go to this game. So, there's probably a 10 to 20,000 regular season ticket base plus corporate sponsors and, whatever. And so there are some neutral people that'll be there, but among the partisans, it'll be pretty heavy for Utah. So, but, Ohio State's played in, tough environments. At least it won't be snowing. And, so they won't have that to deal with.
All right. It is the Rose Bowl, folks. So enjoy. Buckeyes and the Utes. The last time we'll see the Buckeyes play until next September. Steve Hellwagon, 247 Sports, Bucknuts. Steve, we always appreciate it. Enjoy the game. Have a good time.
Yeah, glad we were able to get together, and we'll get into the long off season next time around, I presume.
Absolutely. We'll see everybody soon.
Enjoy the game.
I'll be right here after the ball game on New Year's Day to take everybody's comments and questions. So we'll be right here after the Rose Bowl to talk it up with all of you. So we'll see you soon.